to Interdependent Study, our podcast where we engage in the learning and unlearning work for collective liberation. I'm Damien.
And I'm Aaron. Thank you so much for joining us today. Each week, we'll bring something new to the table, discuss our thoughts and feelings about it through the lenses of who we are and where we can go for a more just society.
We want Interdependent Study to be a space where we're always learning with one another. And Aaron is up this week.
Woo.
What are you bringing to the table today?
Well, happy Super Bowl day.
Hey.
When we're recording this.
Yes.
If you pay attention to those kind of things.
Yeah.
But I'm bringing an article from Truthout called "The U.S. Occupation of Gaza is Officially Beginning." It was written by Mitchell Plintick and published at the end of January. And the article goes into some of the details of the Board of Peace that Trump and his regime have cooked up. Specifically, they talk about the Executive Board, which is a more specific part of the Board of Peace, and then the Gaza Executive Board, which is a specific part of the Executive Board. So they've got some interesting layers of autocracy and authoritarianism baked into this whole thing.
Yep.
And Mitchell refers back to the draft resolution quite a bit to highlight why all of this basically means the U.S. is going to be an occupier of Gaza.
Yes.
And he says, quote, "This resolution is the battle plan to turn Gaza into the playground for the wealthy that Jared Kushner presented to the World Economic Forum at Davos last week. It's a Gaza where the only Palestinians remaining are those chosen to be the servants in the new regime. It's a Gaza under permanent American occupation." Yeah. So this is disaster capitalism entwined with colonialism, dressed up with language to make it sound nice.
Yeah.
And I'll add that in trying to prepare for this, I basically just wanted to read huge portions of the article out loud on the mic.
Yeah.
Because it's just full of stuff that I want to talk about. And sometimes I would pull up a piece and I would think, oh, that doesn't make sense without the preceding two paragraphs.
Yes.
And so there's a lot in here. And so I really recommend just reading it. It's not that long.
Yeah.
But with all of that said, there's a lot to talk about. Where do you want to start?
No, I get all of that. I thought this was a really compelling piece because it helped to illuminate, what the Trump administration has planned for Gaza moving forward and just how utterly ridiculous and dangerous its plans are in terms of, particularly in terms of the plans for the future of Gaza and what will come of the Palestinian people. And to me, it's all just really infuriating to learn about and understand and see. You mentioned the Board of Peace and the Executive Board and the Gaza Executive Board. And I wanted to talk a little bit about all of that. Part of what Mitchell says about the Board of Peace is, quote, "The Board of Peace can delegate its authority as it wishes, and that is what it has done regarding Gaza. The Executive Board is the body that will govern Gaza. The Executive Board itself will also have other areas within its portfolio, so it too has delegated its power to yet another group dubbed the Gaza Executive Board. There is considerable overlap between the members of the Executive Board and the Gaza Executive Board. Not only are there no Palestinians on the Gaza Executive Board, but there is also no one with any history of advocating for Palestinian concerns and interests." And there's so much that's baffling to me about all of this. We're kind of just making up these boards and sub-boards. We're making up authority over a country and a people that we simply do not have and should not have. And that last part in particular, how there are no Palestinians on the Gaza Executive Board and no one advocating for the Palestinian people and their interests and their needs, to me is just so despicable. And I think it's clear that the Trump administration and its allies and the people on these boards, do not care about the Palestinian people or their humanity or their future. And as you said, it's capitalism, it's colonialism, it's white supremacy, all coming together in ways that, as I said earlier, endanger the lives and the future of the Palestinian people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the things that is interesting about all of this is that the Board of Peace has been reported on in some of the major media outlets.
Yeah.
Not a lot. I haven't seen much. Mitchell points out some of the important details of the board. So, you started talking about the Executive Board, the Gaza Executive Board, but the overall Board of Peace that I guess has authority over those smaller sub-boards.
Sub-boards, entities, yep. Mm-hmm.
So that's what he's talking about here. He says, quote, "The Board of Peace itself has drawn the most attention, but it is not the focal point for Gaza. The Board of Peace is set up as an international force to challenge the United Nations. It is currently populated entirely by far-right and autocratic figures and will likely stay that way. The Board of Peace will be headed by Donald Trump, and his role as board chair is personal, disconnected from his role as president of the United States. He has full power over the board's composition and full veto power over all of its actions. Trump will remain in control of the Board of Peace until he decides to leave or he dies, and he has the sole authority to name his successor. You couldn't build a clearer autocracy. Yeah, so a lot of this just doesn't make sense to me. Trump has access to these far-right figures because of his position as president, but he, or let's be real, his little minions around him, have cooked up this entity that allows him to retain authority over the board permanently.
Yes.
And it's not connected to, this isn't a U.S.-backed thing.
Nope.
This is a Trump regime-backed thing, entity.
Yes.
So there's a lot of that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because on what? What?
Why? How?
Yeah. It's just completely unhinged autocracy, as Mitchell points out, and it's designed to undermine the UN even more than having veto power and a Security Council does.
Yeah.
As the U.S. has vetoed so many things over the years. And so it's just this blatant attempt to hold on to power permanently in a way that will line his pockets further.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. As you say, it's baffling, right?
Yeah.
And it's all really insane. And it's concerning on so many levels. And I don't know what's most troubling about the things that you shared there. The United Nations piece, or the fact that this board will be made up of these far-right leaders, or the fact that Trump just gets to run this forever.
Yeah.
So it's so wild. All of it's so wild. The other concerning thing that Mitchell brings up in this piece that I mentioned earlier is that, no Palestinians are included in any of this, on any of these boards. And Mitchell offers a really great analysis around all of this. So he says, quote, "While there are no Israelis on the executive board, it is stacked with extreme supporters of the Israeli right and of Netanyahu. This makes the vague mandate of the entire enterprise much more concerning. The proposal published by Drop Site states that, quote, the reconstruction and rehabilitation activities of the board shall be dedicated solely to those who regard Gaza as their home and place of residence, end quote. But the proposal offers no opportunity for the people of Gaza to have any say at all in their present situation, let alone their future. The executive board governs all of the laws. An American-led international stabilization force controls all security. The International Stabilization Force is to be under the control of American Major General Jasper Jeffers. Trump, and Trump alone, has the power to remove the commander of the International Stabilization Force and must personally approve any nominee to replace him." So again, we've got that unhinged autocracy that you mentioned earlier. And also that piece of the executive board is stacked with these far-right folks, these supporters of Netanyahu, these supporters of the Israeli right. It's all so bad. And to me, there's nothing in this that gives any sort of glimpse that any of it's going to do anything good for Gaza and for the Palestinian people. Just the continued destruction of that place and those people, in fact.
Yeah, and any kind of so-called development will be done on behalf of whom? Not on behalf of the people who have called that place home.
Yes.
Right? So, and Mitchell goes on to talk about this a little bit. He outlines some of the details of the plan for Gaza.
Yeah.
And he says, quote, "The plan further states that only those persons who support and act consistently with Trump's comprehensive plan for Gaza will be eligible to participate in governance, reconstruction, economic development, or humanitarian assistance activities in Gaza. The only role currently envisioned for Palestinians in Gaza is to carry out the decisions made for them by others. In other words, Palestinians who wish to be part of Gaza in any way must meet Trump's litmus test of support for the external American control of the Gaza Strip. The same will be true for any business, NGO, or even individual who wants to participate in any way in rebuilding Gaza, physically, politically, or economically."
Wow.
So you get to participate in this new vision of Gaza only if you pledge fealty to the regime.
Yes.
This is Game of Thrones nonsense, right? It's like I'm going to bend the knee.
Seriously.
And it's so ridiculous. they're subjects in this plan.
Yeah.
It's just this total subjection of people.
Absolutely.
It's colonial power and control through the lens of an imagined intermediary of this board of peace. And there's no room in here for self-determination or collective autonomy of Palestinians or self-governance.
No.
You get to participate and live there as a servant to the board of peace and their vision and whatever other businesses come in to run the new resorts they're going to build or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's no room for anything else here. It's just this disaster capitalist development in the wake of a genocide.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no room for anything else. And the Game of Thrones analogy there. Wow. Yeah, no, that's it. So Mitchell actually, I'm glad you brought up that quote. Mitchell goes on to say a little bit more about all of this. As you said, we could quote the whole thing. So he says, quote, ideally for Trump and Jared Kushner, Gaza would be transformed into a giant company town. Most of the coastline would be dedicated to tourism. The bulk of Gaza's eastern border with Israel would be dedicated to industrial zones and huge data centers, doubtless reflecting the massive investments Trump and his Emirati friends are making in AI. In between would be residential areas separated by parks, agricultural, and sporting sites. In the West Bank, such parks and agricultural areas are frequently declared closed military zones and used for other purposes by the occupying force. As has been apparent from the beginning, the only role currently envisioned for Palestinians is in the administration of the executive board's decisions. In other words, Palestinian technocrats, laborers, and office workers would be permitted to carry out the decisions made for them by others. And so I think through this, we can see how all of this is capitalism at play. The only thing that Trump and his administration and his cronies are interested in is money and making a profit and getting a return on their investments. And there's no concern at all about the future of the Palestinian people, what would be best for them, what would be right for them, what they would want. And I think they're not trying to hide this at all either, like that it's all about money. And so there were just constant moments where I was reading this and I was just like, this is all just so shameful.
Yeah, and they have that piece about the parks and the sporting sites and agricultural stuff, and then all that sounds well, okay, well, maybe and but that's in there for us to do that, to say like, well, it doesn't sound that bad, because those then become, as Mitchell says, military sites for staging any kind of operation that needs control over.
Absolutely.
And we see that with ICE operating in parks when they shouldn't be.
Yes.
Across the country, but in Minneapolis.
Yes, absolutely.
So, there's a purpose to it to create open space that can be held by a military force.
Well, and the other thing about like sporting, for example, sporting arenas is those are sites of money, right? It takes the money to build them, and then it takes the money to bring whatever teams are in. And those are billion-dollar teams and entities and events and things like that. And so, again, all of it's all about money. Yeah.
And we know from stadium sites here that money doesn't really come back to the community that it sits in.
Yes.
So that's another element.
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's talk about application.
Okay.
How does this article apply to our day-to-day lives and work? I'm going to pull a quote from the very end of the article.
Okay.
Mitchell says, the solution is simple. Allow Palestinians their freedom and their rights. But that solution is beyond the imagination of Washington and Tel Aviv. So meet the new occupation. It will be no more pleasant than the old one. And we're just seeing settler colonialism with a neoliberal capitalist gloss.
Yes.
It's got a sheen to it.
Yes.
It's got sporting sites and parks and new resorts on the shore. It's all just a new version of colonialism. It's really not a new version. It's just it's slightly remixed.
Yes.
But that's it. It's, as Mitchell said, it's a different kind of the same thing.
Yes.
So that's my application.
Yeah.
What about you?
That's absolutely the application of this piece. We've simply just traded one occupation for another.
Yeah.
But I'm really worried about how dangerous this one will be.
Yeah.
My application comes from what Mitchell shares actually right before what you quoted in your application. So he says, this resolution provides only a bit more substance to the half-baked ideas Trump has been putting forward since October. And it continues to envision a near future where Hamas has voluntarily disarmed, Israel has pulled out of Gaza, and the International Stabilization Force has assumed security control that is welcomed by whatever Palestinians remain in Gaza. All of that remains fully in the realm of fantasy. And I don't know about you or anyone listening, but it's really concerning to see American foreign policy being referred to as half-baked ideas and fantasy, right? Like I kind of expect more or hope for more, and maybe that's on me. Yeah. But, it's exactly what you said as application. It's settler colonialism with a neoliberal capitalist topping, and it's all so bad.
Yeah, it's not. It's not great.
Not great.
Not great. All right, let's talk about homework. There's an article from Al Jazeera that's linked here in Mitchell's article, and it's called Map Shows What Would Happen to Gaza Under the U.S. Master Plan. And the subtitle says, quote, "The plan treats Gaza as vacant beachfront property, proposing glass towers and industrial zones over historic sites." So I want to read more about this plan through this map, through this article from Al Jazeera, to try to understand the unhinged decisions that they're making with this Board of Peace, the Gaza Executive Board, or whatever other kind of nonsense they cook up, because it just feels important to understand what that vision is as we see the continued mistreatment and displacement of Palestinians in Gaza. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think we should definitely check that out. I think in particular, thinking about, I didn't click on it, but if it's truly a map, like that might be a great way to visualize what all of this will unfortunately maybe look like. So yeah, I'll co-sign that. We should check that out. There were also links connected to almost all of the proposed members of the Gaza Executive Board. Mitchell does a great job of naming those folks and saying a little bit about who they are and where they're coming from and what they support. And so it might be good to spend some time checking those out to learn more about those folks in more depth, as difficult as that might be. And maybe I don't really want to do that. But if this thing is going to be what it's going to be, then, it's always good to be educated and informed about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting cast of characters that he
really
listed.
Is.
Yes. And the Board of Peace also is made up of a whole cast of real out there wing nuts.
Yep. Yeah. So we should know about it. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for a great conversation on this.
Yeah.
This article about the U.S. occupation of Gaza starting. And Damien, you're up next time. What do you bring to the table in our next episode?
Yeah, so I am bringing our February book to the table for us to talk about next week. The book is called Black History is for Everyone, and it was written by Brian Jones and published by Haymarket Books just this past September. And here's what Haymarket has as part of the description of the book. So it's, quote, "Black history is under attack from powerful forces that seek to excise it from classrooms, libraries, and the popular imagination. Yet its opponents fail to understand a simple truth. The best education challenges our assumptions, helps us see larger forces at work, and gives us glimpses of alternative futures. In Black History is for Everyone, Brian Jones offers a meditation on the power of Black history, using his own experiences as a lifelong learner and classroom teacher to question everything, from the radicalism of the American Revolution to the meaning of race and nation." I just finished this book a couple days ago. It's such a great exploration of the usefulness and importance of learning and understanding and applying Black history, not just to our everyday lives, but also to our collective learning and unlearning work and our struggle and our fight for liberation. And so I'm really looking forward to talking about this one with you next time.
Yeah, it is. It's a very good book full of a lot of great history, as you would expect.
Yeah.
And a lot of details of history that I didn't necessarily know too much about. Excited to talk more about it next week.
Yes.
And with that, we want to thank you for joining us today. You know what we want you to do here, but in case you forgot, please follow, leave a rating and review, share our podcast with the people in your life. Follow us on social media, including Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. Check us out on YouTube and sign up and join us on Patreon to get notified about any new things we've got going on behind the scenes.
Yes, thank you so much for listening. And remember, it's not about us, but it is about all of us. We'll talk to you next week.